Thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. The term enough money definitely varies from person to person. For someone, it can mean just making enough to live comfortably, own a house, maybe even raise a family. For others, it can mean just earning enough to pay that guy off Craigslist to meet you behind Walmart. Meanwhile, others can be the richest people on the planet, owning almost half of the world's financial assets and still do their best to avoid paying any taxes. Ooga booga 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 booga. Here comes the tax man. Just leave me alone. I mean, come on, guys. Can you really blame them? How else are they supposed to afford their $50 million wedding? What, are they supposed to not make their workers pee in bottles? Anyways, this entire thing got me thinking about how greedy corporations and CEOs are. Like, goddamn, you're not even trying to hide it anymore. Strategies of high corporate greed is so much more obvious right now than it has ever been. And if it weren't already obvious, some people are not too pleased about this. Like, come on, how is it legal to say that you're having a sale when in reality it's the exact same price, or just straight up shrinking the products and still making it more expensive? For example, since 2022, I have watched my grocery store slowly increase the cost of a block of cheddar cheese from $6.99 all the way to $10.99. That's a time frame shorter than the average presidential term. I was 18 years old when this was the price. I'm 21 now. What the f***, man? Now, the most obvious solution would be, okay, cut cheese out of your diet. Switch to Kraft singles. Are you listening to yourself right now? First off, cheese is awesome. Second off, I thought we were supposed to be worrying about microplastics, not eating them. But you know what? I do hear what you're saying. Cheese is a little bit, that's not too necessary, right? Let's try something else like egg. $16. For the what? The result of two chickens having a good time? I know that gym bros are in shambles. I'm sorry, guys. Now, with tariffs affecting imported eggs and a sudden outbreak of bird flu, that caused an egg shortage, which meant that there was higher demand for an everyday product, which meant that if you found them, you'd be willing to pay almost any Wait a second. Raising prices will affect anybody who doesn't wipe their ass with $100 bills. Hold on. Do you guys hear what's coming? Because I do. Here comes the money. That being said, grocery store prices are always slowly gonna get more expensive over time because that's just how inflation works. Old people are always talking about how crazy inflation is because they would never spend more than $1 on a week's worth of groceries. Back in my day, I could use a quarter to raise an entire family, and my secret one in Vietnam. Companies are always gonna hide behind inflation and use it as their first excuse when people criticize them for making prices go way out of control. Now, if you really think the dick tastes that good, then that's fine. In this scenario, let's say the only reason prices are so expensive isn't because of corporate greed, but simply because of inflation. If that's the case, then what is the possible excuse that anybody can possibly think of when it comes to shrinkflation? This is probably the most obvious form of corporate greed on the planet. It is so ridiculous how companies are just allowed to take a product that was a certain size and slowly shrink it down because, oh, the consumer isn't gonna notice. How stupid do you think the average person is? What, you think people aren't able to tell that you're keeping lemonade at $2.99 yet shrinking it by 30%? They slowly shrink the portion size that they're giving you because they know inflation is eventually gonna make things more expensive while selling you less product. It's not even necessarily just groceries, it's fast food too. Maybe I'm living in a fantasy land, or the Mandela effect just seems to be really strong nowadays. But I could have sworn there was a time period where fast food burger patties weren't thinner than an Oreo. You can't even deal with the aftermath of fast food taking a shit and not be affected by shrinkflation. Look what they're doing to toilet paper. Again, this isn't just for food products. No, this is for things like a house, a place to live. The average age in the US for home buyers has now jumped to 56 years old. No, let me put this into perspective. 56 years old, provided you're not some mythical eldritch elf being from the Lord of the Rings universe, your life is already more than half over at this point. Maybe you can buy a house because it's not even guaranteed. This is partially due to people buying so much more property, yet nobody actually living in them. Companies are even buying up multiple houses, and instead of, housing themselves with it, they just let it sit there vacant as it creeps up in value over the next 30 years. 4 years ago, we had to sell our childhood home, and it was bought up by an investor. As soon as we moved out, this guy tore down the house, built 2 new houses, each of which having 3 units. And over the past 3.5 years, every every single one of these units, except for one, has been left vacant. And I have a slight hunch that the reason it's not a hot commodity on the market and selling fast like hotcakes is maybe because this company is trying to rent it out for $2,500 a month for this tiny ass space cosplaying as a New York City apartment. This is ridiculous. Who is going to voluntarily live in here? An Oompa Loompa? I've seen apartments in New York City more spacious than this. But granted, that's like comparing having a wet fart to in your pants. Like, they're both really bad. There's an area in New York City called Billionaires Row where the majority of the real estate is owned by billionaires and left completely vacant. You can't convince me this isn't some super deep-rooted money laundering scheme going on within the ultra-wealthy. Are they using Pokemon cards? Well, that statement aged like milk. The currency used by the ultra-wealthy indeed wasn't Pokemon cards or even money. It was children. Now, I'm not sure about what you think, man, but raising the prices on these things? Yeesh. Not the greatest look, man. I've had poops in my toilet that look better than this. But would you believe me if I were to tell you that these two things are like putting droplets of water into the ocean? They are absolute nothingness in comparison to the practices of insurance firms. These businesses are so evil and lucrative, somehow even worse than reselling fake designer on Depop. In case you're not up to speed on what insurance is, let's say you're paying a health insurance company $150 a month, and that's on the lower end. You pay this company monthly, so that way if you need to go to the hospital, the insurance firm covers a lot of the cost for the medical bills, so that way you're not in crippling debt because of that time you tried to recreate a jackass stunt when you were 12 years old. That's the beautiful concept that is health insurance. Now, is that actually how it works? Son, I'm crying. You think the premium service you pay for is actually gonna provide for you? Get a load of this fucking pour on, am I right, guys? Time and time again, health insurance firms have been caught doing their absolute best to weasel their way out of doing the exact service that people are paying for. See, health insurance firms do their absolute best to make it as vague as possible. They only cover certain procedures in certain hospitals by certain doctors. They on purpose make it as vague as possible, so if you come to them and make a claim, you best believe they are going to do their absolute best to go deep within their book as big as SpongeBob's active routine maintenance manual and say that, well, if you pay attention, according to the fine print located on section 23 paragraph 7a, your claim doesn't fall under insurance policy. The main goals of these companies aren't to treat people and keep you as healthy as possible. No, their main thing and main goal is to maintain as much profit as possible, and the way they do so is by keeping costs as low as they can. It's never going to be in the best interest about you. How can you get the best quality care out of this? No, it's always going to lean more towards how can we save as much money as possible. Ugh, God, this stupid poor person keeps crying about his leg. Do we need to put a cast on it? I have a saw. This is in no way the fault of any doctor or healthcare professional out there. I know it's insane to believe considering they're doing every insurance company's worst nightmare, but they're actually treating their patients like human beings. Ew, the way that you're treating them, it's so gross. Now, if you excuse me, I'm gonna go pay a 60-year-old immigrant from El Salvador to clean my entire penthouse for $12. Here's a letter coming from United Healthcare denying a specialized wheelchair for a child, claiming it is not medically necessary, yet at the same time acknowledging that it is. Here's another one that a doctor wrote to United Healthcare after they denied nausea medication for a child on chemotherapy. Listen, I am in no way condoning anything. Do not take words out of my mouth. But are they really still clueless? Again, not condoning anything, just some food for thought. A lead sandwich for thought. And yet, believe it or not, even after all of this, there are still dinguses, idiots, who will do their absolute best to defend these billionaires and corporations as much as they possibly can. They sit there in their trailer park house on their verified Twitter account, tip-tapping away about, please, we can't tax them higher amounts. If we do that, they're gonna leave. Hey man, do you know how much of an idiot you sound like right now? Just because you're defending these ultra billionaires, they're not going to reach out to you personally and give you their pocket change of $20,000. More than anything, I bet what's actually happening is they're sitting in their $20 million house in Calabasas, Los Angeles and thinking, A sucker is born every day. They are not on anybody's side but their own. Today's video is sponsored by War Thunder. War Thunder is the most advanced free-to-play vehicle combat game out there, available on all platforms such as PlayStation, Xbox, PC, and they're also on iOS and Android. The mobile version features intuitive controls, impressive graphics, and the familiar massive multiplayer warfare in dynamic ground and sea battles with air support. You can become the commander of over 2,500 tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships of 10 major nations, from biplanes and armored cars of the 1920s to the fighter jets and main battle tanks of today. Immerse yourself in the intense combat of War Thunder, where incredibly detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects place you right in the helm of the most powerful war machines of our time. Join a worldwide community of over 95 million players in epic PvP battles and delve into the breathtaking experience that is War Thunder. There's an unmatched variety of high-quality content to discover. There's no better game for you to play if you're a huge fan of war history. To try out War Thunder for free on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, iOS, or Android, use my links in the description or pinned comment. Provided you're a new player or someone who hasn't played in the past 6 months, you'll get a huge bonus of goodies such as multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account time for PC and consoles. But act fast, because this bonus is available for a limited time only. Thank you so much to War Thunder, and now back to the video. Pretty much everybody in human history has had a job. From people in the Great Depression working the coal mines for a bowl of stew, all the way to the first humans on Earth. I bet the person who discovered fire was making a crazy amount of money doing it as a side hustle. Making your own money is just something that you're gonna have to do eventually in your life. From pretty much the moment you graduate high school, you're hit with a pretty hard reality. You could either A, become a bum and live at your parents' house until you're 45 years old, B, go to college or university, some sort of secondary education, and hope to start a flourishing career, or C, no matter what ending you decide to choose, provided it's not C, there's a pretty big chance that sometime in your life, you're gonna have to do something that nobody wants. You're gonna have to get a job. Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the hard truth. Nobody wants to get a job, but unfortunately, that's just what has to be done. Gen Z is just gonna go on and join the working class, much like the generations before us, and get a 9 to 5. You just gotta get a job and give up on your dreams. Or do you? You see, Gen Z is completely different from any past generation. While other groups like Millennials, Gen X, or the old people had a much easier time finding jobs, we're not really in the same boat whatsoever. In fact, the employment rate for Americans aged 16 to 24 years old is only 10.5%. That's only double the amount of old people enough to be in retirement. Meanwhile, the unemployment for Gen Z is the highest it's ever been, with 96.7% of people being completely— I just made that up. I have no idea. In reality, it's a lot closer to 15%, and that's the amount of people who end up going to apply for a job and they're just told to scram and get kicked out to the side of the curb. I don't really think this is just the fault of one specific issue that's causing younger generations not to achieve work. I think it's a variety of different problems that just sort of accumulate all at once, and they almost fit like puzzle pieces. One thing that definitely affects the desire for younger generations to go out and look for an aspiring career is old people constantly reminding them how lazy they are. Hey dude, no, it's not at all laziness, although that's definitely part of it to a certain extent. It's brain dead just to say that's the sole reason. A big part of it is competition. Competition to get a job is so unbelievably high. It's so much more competitive for Gen Z to actually find an entry-level job, because now you're not just competing against young people between the ages of 15 to 25 years old anymore. Nah, now you got 16-year-olds and 40-year-olds fighting for a cashier position at Walmart. So many people during lockdown ended up getting laid off and just never went back to their job, and now that everything is progressively getting more and more expensive, it's just getting harder and harder to find a job, especially when you're just getting into the workforce. That being said, let's say you aspire for something more than just a typical service job. Let's say that you really do go to some sort of secondary education, whether it be college or university. You spend tens of thousands of dollars on putting yourself into debt with student loans. After years of hard work and finally graduating with multiple degrees, there's still no guarantee that you're even gonna end up finding a job in the first place. Competition is just way too high at this point, and entry-level jobs are significantly harder to get hired for now than they were 50 years ago. Way back in the day, it seems like you were able to apply for almost any single job you could have imagined with little to no experience. You could have been stinky, a high school dropout, a bum, and yet still you somehow would have gotten a call back saying that you're hired. Now? You could graduate from Harvard with 5 master's degrees and a PhD under your belt, a certificate saying that you personally rebuilt a village in the middle of the jungle, and you'll still get a letter back saying, "Dearest reader, we greatly appreciate your consideration for this role. Unfortunately, due to lack of experience and education, your skills are nowhere near what we're looking for, and we've decided to move forward with other applicants. Sincerely, the McDonald's down the street." And this is the case over and over and over again for some people. Even when I was 15 or 16 years old, finding a job was still relatively hard, and I knew tons of my friends just weren't able to find one no matter how hard they tried. Out of both of the jobs that I have, one of them I worked at a Goodwill-like store, and the second one I worked at a Marshall's. I'm pretty convinced that the only reason I got either of those cashier jobs is because I knew people who were employed there and put in a good word for me. I remember when I got to Marshall's for the interview, there were like 5 other people in front of me, and they were all significantly older, and they chose to hire the worst possible option: me. If I didn't know somebody who worked there, there is no way I would have gotten that job. How do I know? Because I applied for that exact same cashier position like 7 different times. Listen, dude, the truth is, it's just significantly harder for almost anyone to find a job now due to higher competition. And the worst part is, it's just gonna keep getting worse in the future. Oh, why is that, I hear you ask, as you sit there slurping your instant ramen? Because now, people aren't only competing against other humans. Sooner than later, you're gonna be competing against a bag of bolts. Imagine losing your job to a stupid robot. I would be livid. The first thing that this is obviously going to happen to is customer service jobs. I would not be surprised if in 10 years from now, it'd be considered hard to find an actual human employee working inside of a fast food establishment. Hold on. Wait. Guys, this is happening sooner than expected. The robot takeover is already here. Almost half the time I pull up into some drive-thru, I'm greeted with a robot voice, and sometimes it takes me a while to process that it's not human. So when I finally realize it's automated, I sit there like an idiot.
Hello, I hope you're doing fantastic. How can I help you today?
Thanks for being so high energy. I'm having a really bad day today. I just need somebody to talk to.
Are you a member of our points program?
Oh. I think it's pretty much common knowledge that this is just gonna keep happening, and if it weren't already obvious, these big corporations could not give less of a shit about how it'll ruin the job market. Most of the time, if the big billionaire boss at the top sees an opportunity to save 70 cents on his company, but it means that he has to fire every single one of employees and replace them with 2 robots, well, chances are the robot just got the job, even if it's significantly less efficient. The CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, is without surprise very supportive of this because he'll just keep making money. This mother goes on interviews and talks about how excited he is for the future of AI and its involvement in the workforce. It's pretty easy for you to state your excitement when you're sitting on $2 billion in the bank.
Half the kind of jobs go away, totally change, whatever. I'm not afraid of that at all. In fact, I think that's good. I think that's the way of progress, and we'll find new and better jobs.
Brother, what do you mean we are gonna find new and better jobs? You couldn't care less if AI is gonna create new jobs for people. All you care about is being the first one to turn society into a mindless robot dystopian hellscape as fast as possible, so that way you can continue to get rich. This dude could do nothing but and eat gold-covered Wagyu steak every day for the rest of his life, and he would still have $1.99 billion left to his name. You don't have to worry about anything for the rest of your life, so of course you're happy that big corporations are getting more involved with AI. They're just gonna keep funding his toilet paper of $100 bills. And one career line that I think seems to be a little bit safer than anything to do with tech is becoming a blue-collar worker. That's right, working like a dog day and night. Working on construction sites, working with pipes, electrical wiring, this entire line of work is something that a lot of younger people have been getting into because it's a relatively good paying job, and at least as of right now, it doesn't seem like it'll get impacted by AI. The only issue with it is these jobs are pretty much exploiting what the human body is physically capable of. I've seen so many videos of like construction workers' hands. Bro, that is a brick. This is just me personally, but I would much rather get paid 25 cents an hour and some belly button lint than work my hands hands until my fingers look like Italian sausages dipped in cement. Go ahead, call me soft hands or pretty princess. Make fun of me for using shampoo and conditioner instead of in fast orange hand cleaner that doubles as car wash soap. These people are brave enough to work with heavy machinery or electrical wiring for 17 hours a day. Meanwhile, I'm too scared to press the crosswalk button when there's oncoming traffic because I don't want to be annoying. Bro, some of these people are on the construction site at like 4:30 in the morning and not coming home until 7 p.m. By the time they're on their lunch break at 1 p.m., some people are just waking up and getting ready to do a whole lot of nothing the entire day. Like, listen, dude, there's nothing I love more than watching YouTube and eating hot fries all day. But how the do you have absolutely no ambition to do anything? At least try to do anything. The thing is, if you're able to score a job, half the time you're getting paid to do practically nothing. If you get hired as a store associate somewhere, I'm being so for real, 50% of the job is just being bored and waiting for something to do. When I worked at Marshall's, there used to be this position called general maintenance, and all you would do is wheel around this rickety old janitor's cart and keep things clean. But instead, what most people would do is put up a sign saying the bathroom was closed for cleaning, and then you lock yourself in there and scroll on your phone for the entire shift. And I know I'm not alone in this. There are people on TikTok posting videos about how to be a lazy employee. My thing is, if you're already there for 7+ hours, why not just do something? Bro, if you have the opportunity to get paid for doing literally nothing, then you should take it. And yet, after all this, old people will still call younger generations ungrateful or lazy for not getting a real job. Like, I'm sorry, how the am I lazy for not replicating your perfect picture life and success all before I turned 23 years old? That's not even me just pulling random word sandwiches out of nowhere. In 1960, the average age where American adults would successfully buy a home was 23 years old. 23 years old? Man, what the f***? I'm 21 years old and I barely know how to do real grocery shopping. You expect people to buy a whole house before their hairline starts receding or before they have kids? Meanwhile, a pint of strawberries costs $12.99? Yeah, alright, I'll totally make sure to get on that. Most people seem to have the idea that the blueprint for a perfect life involves having children of your own and being able to raise a family. Honestly, I wouldn't mind having a kid of my own one day. Somebody that looks like me, talks like me. We could flick up in Chinese reps together. Yo, they could bring me a Cutwater before they go to school. Life could be perfect. That being said, I'm currently 21 years old. There is no way that I want kids right now. Absolutely not. That. I'm currently on my 4th gap year since graduating high school, but guys, my life is just getting started. And thankfully, I'm not the only one not having kids at an early age. If you go on TikTok or Instagram Reels, there's almost endless videos of people in Gen Z talking about how they don't want to have kids. And it's not just people saying that they don't want to have kids at a young age. No, it's people saying they don't want to become a parent at all in their life. The truth is, Gen Z is having significantly less kids than any other generation before. And I'm not just basing this off of random posts I've seen online. No, there are studies and statistics done to prove that this is the case. Currently, Gen Z is having 50% less children than people back in the 1950s. To put this into perspective, only 1 in 10 people are currently having children before the age of 23, which is insanely different to what was the reality back in the 1970s, where the average age where you would become a full-time mother is 21 years old. Back then, you could buy a house, get married, have a family, and have another family in Korea and be able to support both of them with ease in your early 20s. Compare that with today's day and age, bro, you'd be lucky if a box of diapers doesn't put you into debt. According to this study done in 2025, if you're taking everything into account, such as education, medical expenses, extra housing, food, everything, the average cost per year to raise a child in the United States is $27,743. If you feel like doing a little bit of mental math, you're better than me because I'm going to use a calculator for this. If you take this number and divide it by 12, the average cost is $2,311. Oof. That's a relief. If it was even just 91 cents over, I'd be in financial ruin. I'd probably kill myself. I feel it's appropriate to remind you that this ludicrous amount of money isn't just covering the entire bloodline. Oh, no. This is per child, which means if you have 3 kids, you're spending almost 100 grand every single year. Yo, if I'm paying 100 bands a year, yeah, they better fucking retire me before I get my first colonoscopy. That is ridiculous. $2,300 a month, by the way, is more expensive than what people are paying for rent. Yeesh, everything's getting pretty expensive. But thankfully, the wildly abundant average salary of $66,000 is gonna cover most of the cost. Yeah, man, there's just no way it's possible to be able to afford a kid at a young age. Like I mentioned earlier, older generations were having kids when they were young as bro, even in the early 2000s. I'm currently the same age that my mom was when she gave birth to me. You know, I'm not even brave enough to go swimming too far into a lake because I'm scared a fish is gonna brush up against my leg. You think I'd be brave enough to raise a kid on my own? Of course, like they do with everything, older generations are getting angry at younger people for not wanting to have kids and calling it selfish. Whoa, hold your horses. You want to know what is selfish? Owning nearly half of the available real estate despite only being a fraction of the population. Most young people can't afford a place to live because of how expensive real estate has gotten. Yes, although it is true they bought multiple different houses across the country and didn't sell them until they each hit $3 million in value. Guys, when you really think about it, you're selfish for not wanting to have kids. I don't know, man. I find it kind of hypocritical that the people who are calling you selfish for not wanting to bring a kid into a world of shitty circumstances are also at the same time the ones benefiting from these shitty circumstances. These wrinkled old prunes will look you dead in the eye and act all surprised when you say you don't want to have kids as if they aren't the reason. Boy, slow down. There's so many videos of people interviewing seniors asking how much they bought their house for, and if they don't say the honest answer, which is like $12, they end up crashing out and saying, it's none of your business.
How much did you pay for your first house?
None of your business.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna call the police unless you leave me alone. Do you understand?
Sure, I guess it's none of my business, but at the same time, how is it your business whether I want to have kids or not? A common argument that I've seen before is, oh, well, they're just gonna make the world a better place. Son, are we being fucking serious? That is the worst lie and the biggest cope I've ever heard in my life. If you care so much about making sure that the world becomes a better place and ensuring that younger generations have a good life, maybe they wouldn't have bought 4 different houses across the country and sold them as soon as they 10x'd in value. Also, if I were to have kids today, by the time they become actual functioning members of society, these people would have been long gone already. Also, listen, cost isn't the only factor. Obviously, yes, it's a big part of it. $100,000 a year? Yeesh. That's just a wee bit steep. But I feel another factor to why people aren't having kids is the amount of added stress. People seem to forget that you're raising an actual human being and your decisions are just going to affect their life and the way that they carry about themselves in the world. The way that you treat them, the way that you act around them, towards them, with other people in their presence, it's like a constant security camera. Also, I don't blame people for not wanting to have kids in their early 20s. I don't think you're a bad person for not wanting to sacrifice a huge chunk of your life to raise another human being. I know a few people in my age group, people that I went to high school with, who have already had kids. I know somebody younger than me who has had a kid already. And I'm not gonna lie to you, sports fans, from everything I've been able to see, having a kid at a young age, I don't think that's my cup of tea. Shit, I'm not even sure if it's their cup of tea. This one guy I went to school with recently posted on his Snapchat story that he was pissed he had to spend his money taking care of his kid instead of on NBA 2K. When you're in your 20s, your life is just getting started and you yourself are still finding your way around the world. You expect people to give that up to raise somebody who's just gonna shit and piss and cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars? The second you have a kid, everything you got going on in your life immediately halts. You can't go to the club anymore every Saturday night and go around. What I imagine some people in their early 20s are doing, they're spending all their money on things like clothes, DoorDash, geek bars, and just blowing their money away. Fucking literally blowing their money away, if you catch my drift. The days where you would dedicate your time playing random Steam games, spending money on overpriced McDonald's from DoorDash, going for little adventures in the snow. The second you have a kid, that fairy tale is completely over. Now you actually gotta start doing things like budgeting to see if you're even gonna be able to afford baby formula. You gotta start spending a ridiculous amount of money on things like Gerber baby food, which if you take a look at it, is just a pureed meal. You wanna know how much a jar of beef bolognese Gerber baby food puree is? $3.50. Are you fucking kidding me? For some spaghetti that you simply threw inside of a blender, I can do that myself. The only thing that you share in common with your past life and your current life with a kid is that you still can spend money on clothes. But then immediately the fun is ruined because you're not buying clothes for yourself. I don't want to spend $100 on clothes that I'm gonna need to replace in like 3 months because they already got outgrown. Or I could spend $30 on a fake pair of Jordans that I'm just not gonna outgrow. Also, something that I think a lot of people are finally starting to realize, kids are gross, man. Like, really, really fucking gross. I don't even want to imagine what it's like if you go into a daycare and take one of those germ-seeing black lights. I bet the amount of grime and dirt you're gonna see is mortifying. When it comes to things like personal hygiene or anything within that realm, I'm a pretty big germaphobe, so I don't think I'd enjoy too much a bunch of farty kids running around spreading their germs all over the place and coughing. Like, before you're 8 years old, you rarely wash your hands if you ever decide to in the first place. And the only reason I know this is because this information is coming straight from the source. I was a disgusting farty kid who would just never wash his hands and who was super disgusting. Ew. Every time I step outside, I have the news or TMZ always bothering me and asking whether I'm gonna have kids of my own. And, well, I feel I should finally give an answer to that. Yes, I already did have kids of my own. The rumors are true. As a matter of fact, I had 4 of them, but I ended up trading them for a PS5, so no idea where they're at. Hope their life is good, though. Locking in is a term that I've heard getting thrown around time and time again. What started off as a simple boost of motivation to get your work done, it's blossomed far beyond its original meaning. It's been used in scenarios like,
my mom is kind of homeless.
Dude, I'm watching the stream while you try not to laugh, but
no matter what side of the internet you're on, I'm sure you've heard this term before. However, one age-old question still remains. What does it mean to lock in? Well, that's just the thing. Depending who you're talking to, being locked in can mean completely different things. If you're talking to the average student who maybe has an assignment due the next day, locking in might mean working on what needs to be done. If you ask a giga alpha male who was raised by wolves, allegedly, it might mean doing excessive amounts of going to the gym and flexing your wealth on 13-year-olds, of course. But if you were to ask me, I would probably say locking in is working on a YouTube video in my underwear at 4 a.m. on a diet consisting of dino nuggets and caffeine. I need to make some serious health changes. However, I've made a disturbing but true revelation. No matter how you define locking in, or where in the world you may reside, if you are a part of Gen Z, we all need to collectively lock in together, otherwise we are so fucked. The most obvious thing being that almost everything under the sun is being hit with inflation. I went to the store to buy a Calypso lemonade the other day for the first time in like 7 years, and when I used the self-checkout, I was so appalled with the price my eyes had the misfortune of seeing. $4.49. Almost $5 for a fucking lemonade. For that price, I better be going to the Calypso Island myself and sipping the sweet elixir out of the lakes. Also, no, I don't want to donate $2 to the Children's Hospital. Thank you very much. That's half my Calypso money. Guys, that was a joke. I almost always donate to the Children's Hospital. How was that? Was that good?
Yeah, maybe try and sound a little more convincing.
I got you. Guys, that's a joke. I almost always donate to the Children's Hospital. In short, locking in means putting all of your focus and energy into one thing, not letting anything get in the way of your desired success or breaking your focus. If there's one thing that we humans all have in common, it's that every one of us wants success. And a foot job. So riddle me this. If locking in is so unbelievably important, then why does Gen Z seemingly have a problem to successfully do so? I mean, it's not like we don't want to live a prosperous and successful life. It's just that locking in, it fucking sucks, dude. There's literally no other way of putting it. If there was an option between actually being productive and eating Hot Pockets and watching YouTube all day, 90% of people would choose the second option. I'm gonna be so real. If there's one thing in my life that I'm not great at, it's the ability to successfully lock in. For as long as I can remember, the scenario in my head has always been, all right, man, this is the one. I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna get work done, and I'm actually gonna lock in. Dude, I'm gonna lock in so hard, the world's not even ready to see what's gonna happen. Oh man, I'm gonna be an animation machine. That's funny. You know, it's weirdly comfortable to know that it's not just me who struggles with this and that tons of other people have this exact same experience, except maybe sometimes it's things that are more important than getting a YouTube video done. I've seen a few videos on the good old TikTok of people sharing the common sentiment that they just can't lock in. And while the answer has been lost for so long, I believe that I've made a breakthrough discovery that has never been talked about before in the history of the universe ever by anybody. Ever. Social media. It's obviously no surprise that this plays a big part in people not being able to completely focus for an extended period of time. I mean, considering when you sit down and do your work, you're actually sitting there in your own silence surrounded by nothing but your own thoughts instead of having constant straight dopamine pumped into your veins. Sitting alone in complete silence without any form of stimulation? Nightmare fuel. I've already talked about this pretty extensively in some of my other videos about social media, but I truly believe that one of the reasons that this is so prevalent, especially with younger generations today, is that for the most part, we grew up spending more time on screens than any other generation in the past. It was significantly easier to get literally any type of content we were craving within that very second than it would have been for somebody growing up in the 1960s who didn't have anything but a radio and a Vietnam draft note. And this exact scenario is the same with tons of other people, maybe just with different circumstances. Last week I made a video about the reality of being a YouTuber, and one thing that I failed to mention extensively is the fact that every single video that you see on my channel, I procrastinated till like the very last second. In case some of you didn't know, some of my videos are recorded and edited all in the span of 12 hours. And every single time this happens, I'm sitting there at 4 a.m. going, why did I do this? This is terrible. I'm never doing this again. And then I do it again, and again, and again, and again. Man, I'm even doing it with this video. The amount of people I know and meet who do this exact same thing, whether it be with work or school, is kind of concerning. I don't think you need to be some sort of rocket scientist to understand that this is not the healthiest of lifestyles. So, together, join me, my friends, as we find the solution on how to successfully lock in. There's tons of videos out there on the internet that can help my feeble mind truly grapple this mindset on locking in, like this one, how locking in became Gen Z's new hustle culture.
This is locking in. The phrase is everywhere. Whispered in
because of course every single aspect of this video is completely AI generated, from the art to the voice to the fucking description. Is it not ironic that somebody decided to make a video about the commitment of doing work but then couldn't actually be bothered to do any work, so they turned to AI to do it for them? Oh, the AI, it leaves me no choice. I must turn to the only people who believe in me, alpha males.
2 months of hard work, you and your bro could get the nice car, the nice apartment.
Okay. But how do I do that?
All you have to do is lock in.
Okay. But how do I do that?
Doc, from 16 to 17, I made $180,000 profit in high school.
He's not gonna tell us how he did it, is he? See, this is something I've come to notice with people who claim to be motivational alpha businessmen, is that they seem to think that either yelling into a microphone on a random podcast or filming a TikTok in their $130,000 car is the solution to getting people to lock in. And instead of giving you actual advice on how to do so, they just repeat the same thing over and over again, talking about their wealth. And even if they do give you advice, it's always the same 3 things being said.
Go to the gym, turn off your phone, and simply stop being sad.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks. I have such a strong disdain for these types of influencers because they're well aware that the only people who are actually listening and taking the advice that they out more often than not are people who find themselves at rock bottom and are so desperate for a change they're willing to do literally anything, even if it means spending money on a course just to have an alpha male brag about their wealth. With all that being said, I've seen just as many videos online of people talking about how they're finally ready to lock in. I don't know about you guys, but I think the great lock-in of 2025 is among us. Taking more than 1 shower a week? Check. Making my own food instead of ordering DoorDash? Check. Going to the gym once a day? Check. Oh man, 2025 is gonna be legendary. Oh, it's October. I'll do it next year. Ever since like the 2020 lockdown, there seems to be a continuous cycle where people talk about how much they're gonna lock in and change their perspective on life, and they do it successfully for an entire week, and then never do it again. I definitely don't even have the right to shame people for doing this because I do the exact same thing. For like the past 2 years, I've been telling myself that I'm finally gonna go to the gym and get ripped, put on some muscle on my bones. And for a little bit of time, I did exactly that. I would wake up at 7 a.m., be at the gym for 7:15, work out until like 8, and be home at 8:15. And you wanna know the best part? Every single time I would do it, I always felt really good about myself. And so I continued to do it for the next 12 days. The reason I stopped going in the first place is because one day I woke up and I just told myself, I'll do it tomorrow. 2 years later, not only am I yet to go back to the gym and I'm rocking the exact same physique, but I'm also yet to cancel my gym membership because I keep telling myself that I'm gonna go back and lock in. That's not gonna happen, and I need to stop lying to myself saying that it is. I don't think this is something that's talked about nearly enough, and that's how miserable the feeling of burning out is. Like, not only does it take a huge physical toll on you in the sense that you constantly feel exhausted, but also in the mental sense that your mood is just all over the place and that there's a feeling eating away at the back of your mind, constantly telling you that you can do more when it's really not that easy. The feeling of not doing anything is so ass because deep down you know that you should be working, but you just can't physically bring yourself to do so, especially if you've been working for a much longer period of time, especially if you have a bunch of pressure associated with it. This is pretty similar to what some manga artists do, where they do the entirety of their workload in a short period of time, and 9 times out of 10, it's a success, and the product that they're able to make time and time again is always so beautiful until they kick the bucket. And I don't know about you, but I really don't want to end up like that. So please do yourself a favor and take it easy. I'm not saying sit around and do nothing all day, because after a certain period of time you'll just feel worse and wish that you did work. But yeah, just be nice to yourself. Anyways, that's really all I have to say this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. Before you go, make sure to check out today's sponsor, War Thunder. Go blow up some tanks. Play the game now for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players that haven't played in 6 months will also receive a massive bonus pack across PC and consoles, including multiple premium vehicles and other goodies, available for a limited time only. Make sure to follow my Twitter, my Twitch, and my Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching this. I will see you guys next week. Bye.
I got this lovely feeling that just makes me wanna. Oh, is this awesome love?